Hello, Hey Boomer listeners. I am your host, Wendy Green, and wherever you are listening from, welcome to the Hey Boomer Show. Today, we're going to talk about travel and the meaning that it brings to our lives, the enrichment that it brings to our lives. So, I'm curious, why do you travel? I think some people travel because they want to relax and restore. I think some people travel because they want to meet new friends, and it can be a way to learn about yourself and how you respond to different environments. And travel can also expose you to different cultures and different foods, different ways of living. And that's a lot about what we want to talk about today, and a quick story that I want to share with you today. Hi, Doris and Ann and Gail. Um, so when I was 10 years old, my parents very bravely decided to take all three of us kids on an adventure trip to El Salvador and Guatemala. And so we flew into El Salvador, and after staying overnight, we took a local bus to Guatemala City. Now, let me tell you about this local bus. It was certainly not an air-conditioned bus. I mean, this was in the 60s in El Salvador. And many of the people on the bus were traveling with their chickens. So you can imagine three little children from Miami, Florida, looking at this whole strange environment of people with their chickens on this local bus. It was very interesting and unusual for us. We arrived in Guatemala City, and it was in a state of siege. So you got off the bus, and there were all of these military people with these submachine guns. And again, three little children from Miami, Florida, and we're like, wow. Like Dorothy said to Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. The next day, we took another bus up to a volcanic lake called Lake Atalan. And as we drove up the mountain road, there were women with baskets of goods on their heads, just walking up this mountain road. It was amazing. And then when we got to Lake Atalan and we went to the local market, people in the villages were touching our hair because, these were Mayans and Inca Indians, and they were not used to blonde hair. So it was quite an experience for them to be exposed to us and for us to be exposed to them. And just that whole experience of being in another culture just completely opened my eyes to there's a world outside of these little communities that we live in, and going and experiencing them opens your insight and your empathy for different cultures. And we're going to talk more about that as we go. But I want to do my never too old stories, and these are going to be for Black History Month. So my first story is about Mae Jemison, and she was born in 1965, and she was the first African-American woman to travel to space. She joined NASA as an astronaut in 1987 and flew her first mission in 92 aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour. She left NASA in 93, and since then, she's written a children's book. She's appeared on a Star Trek episode. She created an international space camp for students 12 to 16 years old called The Earth We Share. And she is currently leading the 100-Year Starship Project. She's 65. And this project is focused on ensuring that human space travel to another star is possible within the next 100 years. We seem to be moving in that direction, don't we? The next one I want to mention is Maya Angelou, probably dear to many of you, and she's known for her books and her poetry. Her first book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, was published in 1969, and it tells the story of her own sexual assault as a child and is credited with helping many sexual assault survivors tell their stories. Her last book, Mom and Me and Mom, published in 2013 when she was 87 years old. Maya Angelou read one of her spoken word poems at President Clinton's inauguration. And to honor her legacy, the U.S. Postal Service issued a stamp with her likeness in 2015. So you are never too old to continue to live a full life. With that, I want to bring on Talek so that we can talk about traveling and the meaning it brings to us. Hi, Talek.
Hi there. How are you?
Great. I'm
Good.
so glad to have you on the show today.
Thrilled to be here.
Thanks. Let me tell a bit about you, okay?
Sure.
So Talek is an author, a digital content creator, and founder of the travel blog Travels With Talek.com. She is a passionate travel enthusiast and enjoys sharing her travel experiences with others. Talek's personal and professional background have led her to travel to over 110 countries. She has lived and worked throughout the world. She speaks several languages. She has an MBA and a master's degree in international relations from the University of Pennsylvania, and she lives with her husband in New York City and in Miami. In her blog, Talek shares information on unique destinations and provides actionable travel tips and advice to help travelers make the most of their travel. Her focus is on experiential travel, cultural immersion, and interaction with local people to help travelers create their own unique travel experiences. And her specialty is providing travel advice for women over 50. So, very interesting background, Talek. You were
Thank
in
you.
international travel, international business.
International business development.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about what you were doing?
Okay. International business development is when you work for American companies and you try to promote U.S. products overseas. I worked with Kraft Foods and with Zippo International, MoneyGram International, and these are companies that were looking for people with an international background, either languages, or familiarity with navigating different countries and different cultures, so that these products could be sold there. To give you an example, Kraft Foods, they make everything, Kraft mayonnaise, macaroni and cheese, and so forth. I would sell these products in the Caribbean and in Latin America in general, in Mexico also, but lots of places, through local distributors or selling these products directly to the supermarkets. And to do this, to interact, to get these accounts, to get these orders, you would have to travel to the countries and meet with the buyers. Most of them were warehouse managers and supermarket managers, and sell the products directly to them. With other companies like MoneyGram, for example, I worked in Europe. Well, actually, I had responsibility for a lot of countries besides just Western Europe. But to give you that example, we would work through different agents and different banks in order to ensure the smooth transfer of monies from the United States, mostly immigrants sending money to their families overseas. So those are examples, but for all of those situations, you needed to physically be there. And I always loved travel, so that was a perfect match for me.
It's so interesting because, many people that travel for work, when they're done with that, they're done. They're so burned out from travel. But instead, you decided to start a travel blog and a experiential travel company. I mean, what motivated you to do that?
I enjoyed travel so much, I just couldn't bear the thought of not doing it.
Huh.
And of course, I could have just traveled on my own, which I did and still do without it being business related. But I enjoy the challenge of of combining the two, continuing to combine business with travel. And I think there's a little bit of that's what I've always done
Mm.
and felt very comfortable there. That's my comfort zone. And I just enjoyed it tremendously. I mean, seeing a new place, getting to a new city is always such a rush. A place that you've never seen before, how it smells and what the sounds of the city, getting around. I enjoy that tremendously.
And so you kind of re-see, relearn whatever the city through your traveler's eyes when you take them. I imagine it's new things come up into your awareness.
Oh yes, absolutely. We had tours to three countries: Cuba, China, and Spain, northern Spain in particular. We've put the Cuba and the China trips on hold for now because of COVID. But Spain has opened up with some requirements that need to be met, of course, some safety requirements. So I would like to take these people, my visitors to Spain, to be able to share with them some of the things that I love about this wonderful country.
All right, so tell me about that, right? So like I was talking about this experience, that's immersion experience in Guatemala and El Salvador, and you talk about an immersion experience. How does that work when you take somebody on a trip like that to northern Spain?
Okay, first of all, it's a small group tour. It's not the big bus with if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium type of thing. It's very limited to small groups and usually themed travel. This particular trip is a culture and cuisine trip. Those
Mm.
are two features of Spanishism, if you will, that are very prominent. Spanish food is famous throughout the world. Spanish culture, the music, the dancing, the traditions, the festivals, all of that is very interesting. So rather than to just bring people to a tourist attraction and say, oh, yeah, look at this bull ring or look at this museum, we do cooking demonstrations and wine
Mm.
tastings in wine cellars and romps through food markets. Some of the European food markets are just amazing. Everything that you see there, from seafood to produce to cheeses to things that you wouldn't even recognize. You don't even know what they are. They're so bizarre and unfamiliar and so wonderful. And we eat in places like that rather than to just be eating in restaurants all the time. So food markets, cultural traditions, we try and combine the tour with, we try to make sure that the tour coincides with festivals, local festivals. And this
Ah.
particular one is the Feast of San Mateo, which is one of the most important festivals in northern Spain. So you're in the parade, you experience everything that the city has to offer, or the little kiosks, the roving musicians, the little snack places that pop up, that sort of thing. So that's what I mean by total immersion.
Wow. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. And so much work for you to pull all of that together. I mean, what?
Yeah, but it's worth it. It's you definitely pull it together, but you're not doing 10 different tours, so you're familiar with one place, then you already have the contacts, you already have the knowledge. And we work with some very good logistics providers as well. So it's not as if you're reinventing the wheel with every trip. So, but yes, it is
Yes.
a lot of work.
Now, when is this trip scheduled for?
Oh, this one is September,
September
September 2022, and it's from the 12th to the 24th.
12 to 20, 24. So about 12 days. Okay. All right. We're going to share your website and all so that people can see this.
Great. I've got some nice videos that show people what it's like and what the different festivals are like. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. And one of our listeners says San Mateo Festival is the wine harvest festival, I guess. So,
Don't know of that connection, but who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe there's another surprise there waiting for us.
There you go. More good wines out of Spain.
The specialty that we focus on with San Mateo Festival is the return of the people that emigrated from Spain to the Americas, and they return and they call it the Day of the Americas. So that's a
Oh,
parade and that's a celebration, and that's one of the things that they're celebrating. But I'm sure that there is a wine festival tied in there someplace
probably.
because it's several days and it's several different activities throughout that time.
How fun, Talek, for you to get to experience this with new people all the time.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
is.
So, I mean, we all love to think about travel and go, "Oh, it'd be so cool to go to." But then I talk to friends that you know, either their husbands won't go with them or they're single and they're like, I don't know, going by myself, that's a little scary." How do you talk to women that are kind of in that place?
All right, that's a really good question. I think that that sort of preoccupation, that sort of hesitation, it's not just women related. I mean, men have it too, and there's some people that simply don't enjoy travel, and that's fine as
Right.
well. But some women are concerned with getting lost, not being able to communicate. Eating alone seems to be a very big point as well of difficulty of people feeling uncomfortable. They think it may be expensive. They think it may be unsafe. They're afraid of getting ripped off. And all of those are legitimate concerns. But it's nice to get out of your comfort zone. And once you do, every time you do it, it becomes less and less of a factor, less and less apprehension until you're feeling comfortable. So I have some suggestions to help people with that. Number one, I do believe that you should start, if you've never done this before, you haven't traveled, start with a small group tour just to see how does this work. How do you check
Hmm.
into a hotel? How do you look up some information? How do you visit the tourist office? Then perhaps start small. Once you've done that, you don't have to do these necessarily in order. Also, starting small. If you live in Miami, perhaps go on a solo trip to Key West.
Hmm.
You're not going far. You're not speaking a strange language. You're probably not going to get scammed, or you'll know how to deal with it, and you'll gain confidence in doing that. Also, if you are ready now to go to an international market, there you're probably better off going to a market that is closer to your culture. If
Hmm.
you're in the United States and that's your comfort zone, maybe you want to go to the UK. That should be your first step out as a solo travel to a place where you're going to speak the language, you're going to pretty much figure out the subway system and so forth. Once you're there, once you've conquered this fear of or this apprehension through a small group tour, to starting small, through being in a country that is closer to your own comfort level, to your own culture. Something you can do is to do local tours in situ. So let's say that you're in London, do a local tour, the Tower of London or the top sites to see. They'll take you to the Tower of London, they'll take you to Westminster Abbey. You're in a small group, so you are solo, but you're not alone. And it
Hmm.
gives you something to do, and it's a very efficient way of seeing things rather than doing all of the research on your own and figuring out the opening times and the closing times, and go with a professional. I do that. I do that. And I've been traveling all my life. And I just find that a very efficient way
I
of
think it's
seeing
huge.
what I want to see.
Yeah.
Another thing is free walking tours. You don't have to spend a lot of money on walking tours. Just go to whatever city you're interested in visiting. Let's say Barcelona. Just plug in free walking tours Barcelona. And they're free. You
Yeah.
can't beat that. You can't be free. You're going to get a nice tour. It's going to be free. At the end, it is expected that you pay a tip, but it's pay what you wish. So that's
Yeah.
a wonderful way not only to see things, to save money, but also to meet people. You meet people on these tours, and sometimes you hook up. That's
Right.
nice. Also, once you're there, you can take cooking classes. If you really want to do the total immersion, that is something. Cooking classes are popping up everywhere, and they're a lot of fun. You do learn something. Again, you've got a place to go, you've got an activity that you're going to participate in, and it's something that most people don't do. So if you're interested in the culture, food is the ultimate culture. So
Right.
that's a great way of knowing about the culture. And to top it off, you get to bring this stuff home with you and you can make
Right.
your own paella. So you're learning something. What else you can do? An art appreciation class. I mean, if you're in Florence, oh, take advantage and do
Yeah.
a Renaissance art appreciation class. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Again, that's more immersion. Salsa dancing. If you go to
Ooh.
places in Latin America, salsa dancing is fun. Doesn't matter if you've never danced before, you'll have a great time just laughing about it. And you'll meet people, and again, total immersion. If you're looking at something more long term, people ask me these things all the time because they read about people that have been living in a place for 6 months. I was like, wait a minute, how do these people do that? I mean, if you've got the time, let's say that you're in a
Right.
different stage in life that you can do this, then you could do volunteer work overseas. I know a
Oh, I've
woman.
read about that.
Yeah. I know a
Yeah.
woman that does volunteer work. She's done it in Philippines. This is for animal shelters. She
Hmm.
specializes in animal shelters. She goes and she lives in Vietnam or South Africa for like 3 months, and she packs up and goes someplace else and works for another animal shelter. She's a real animal fanatic.
Yeah.
But other things you can do, such as house sitting. You can, there are several
Mhm.
sites, go online, house sitting overseas, and you could go and take care of a house, somebody's house that's on vacation for 2 weeks, and you're in the countries, the Scottish countryside. What a
Yeah.
way to really get to know a nice small town and not spend a lot of money.
Right.
Teaching English is a very, very valuable commodity. If you speak English, you can sell that skill in
Mm.
many, many places. Japan is very big on this. South Korea, very big on this. I know a woman that does tours to India, cracking India, and she was in Spain, and she went with a group that all you have to do is speak with these Spanish people in English, have conversations with them so that they get accustomed to, they get an ear for the language, and they're speaking with native speakers as opposed to just from books. And this
Yeah.
is like a week, so all expenses paid, room and board,
Well,
and all she has to do is talk. And she brought her husband along with her. So
yeah. So
that's,
lots of ideas for how women can or men
yes.
can face some of these fears. And I really like that idea of the going with a small group first, because it does take a tremendous amount of work to research a place and figure out where you're going to go, where you're going to stay, and how long in each place. And you're with people when you're with a small group, so it gives you that sense of security that what some of the safety customs are, what streets to walk down and what streets not to walk down, and how to hail a cab, and maybe you should have the concierge get the cab. I mean, little tricks like that that just help to keep you safe as well.
Hmm.
So I think going with a group, something like you do, is pretty important.
And something else as well, a few hotels are fine. And I mean, I love them. Um, Obviously, sign up to every hotel rewards program you can possibly get. But also places like Airbnb, HomeAway, there's a lot of different sites where you stay in somebody's home. And that another perfect way to get accustomed to the culture and to total immersion.
Yeah. So, what do you think people get when they go on a tour with you, say, and they get to experience the parades and the cooking, and meeting some of the local people? You're not eating in the tourist restaurants and going to the tourist sites. What do you think that gives them as far as an insight?
I think that there is such a thing, and people will debate this forever, as an explorer gene.
Hmm.
And people enjoy exploring. It must be because how did people explore? How did people come from Europe to the Americas and explore the new world? Or how did people go from Asia to the Americas even before that? Or how are people trying to explore space? I mean, you
Mhm.
mentioned that astronaut. That made me think of that. People are interested in the awe of wonder,
Mhm.
and in seeing something completely new and completely different. Like, oh wow, look at how they eat, or look at how they do that, or wow, that dress is very beautiful.
Mm.
Uh, oh, let me see what would look like on me, or the food, everything like that. To me, my answer to what that makes me feel is that travel makes me happy. It
Mm.
makes me feel good. It makes me feel good to see things, new things, and to interact with people, and to just have conversations with people that are as curious about you as you are about them. I think that would open people very much to different cultures. And I think that's important for everybody. I think that the more exposed you are to different cultures and different ways of life, that helps you to grow as an individual. That's the emotional aspect of travel. The practical aspect of travel is that I believe that it helps you hone skills that you use every day, such as planning, communication, prioritizing, learning, problem solving. How do you get from point A to point B in Madrid? That's a problem. You want to solve that problem. How do you communicate without speaking the language? Where do you
Mm.
go for information? I think not only does that help you get out of your comfort level, but it helps you improve skills that you use on a daily basis.
Hmm. Interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. So the countries that you were going to before COVID, China, Cuba, and northern Spain, all have
Yes,
all have very different. I mean, northern Spain, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, Talek, but I think the culture is probably closer to ours, certainly than China. Um, so I'm wondering, do you give people certain protocols on how to how to talk to people, how to approach people, body distance, things like that, that are acceptable in those different countries?
people ask about that, and yes, we talk about it, not in a formal presentation like, oh, never say this or never do that, but just in plain conversations like, hey, do I order this first? Or no, no, that's usually a dessert. Even if you can, people, I mean, Spaniards are cool. Their major business is tourism. And they have tourists there all the time, so they'll understand. Um, and they don't even see it as a faux pas. I mean, they just know these people are not from here.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, but
I mean,
yeah, we do talk about that.
I remember going to Brazil, to Rio once, and they brought bread out to your table before your meal. And like here, we think that's just part of what they offer. Well, no, if you eat it, you pay for it. And, that kind of thing. We didn't know. So having a tour leader might have helped us understand some of the customs.
Yeah, another custom. Now that you mentioned that, in especially in the north, they have tapas, and you buy a drink. The tapas comes with it. So, don't think that, hey, I have to pay for this. No, no, it's part of that. But those are the things that we would talk about. Yeah. And believe me, very, very quickly, people get adjusted to a culture like Spain.
Yeah. So you have a book. Well, you have several books.
Yes.
But you have one book that is available for free through your website, which I'm going to
Right.
show the site, and it's about travel tips.
Right.
Um,
110 best travel tips.
yeah, and they can get it from your website, travelswithtalek.com.
By subscribing,
Yeah. So
or they can buy it on Amazon.
okay. So it's free, or you can subscribe and get
Right.
it. So what are some of your top tips for traveling?
Oh boy, let's see. Never eat uh, close to or in a tourist area. The food can tend to be not so good, not the best, and they're usually expensive. These restaurants in many tourist areas, they understand that if you're a tourist, you're never going to go. Chances are you're not going to return. So if they don't give you the best possible meal, so what? You're not going to. What are you going to complain in Minnesota? You know. So avoid that. Go a few blocks away. I usually use 5 blocks away, and then look for a restaurant where the locals are. Don't ask your hotel, if you're in a hotel, don't ask your hotel what they recommend, what restaurant they recommend. Ask the hotel clerk where she eats.
Just reframe that question.
Reframe the question, and you will 9 times out of 10 have an exceptional meal. An exceptional
Mm.
meal. And I think that they understand what it is that you're asking. That you're
Yeah.
not asking for the tourist place, you're asking for the good food where the locals go, and that has to be a good restaurant because they depend on the local trade and they depend on these people coming back over and over again. I have so many. I mean, a great website is Rome to Rio, that can tell you how to get from point A to point B every conceivable way, by ferry, by train, by bus, by car, on foot, by collective car,
Oh
you
gosh.
name it. And you can coordinate that transportation advice with travel, with arrivals, for example. And you can save a lot of money. To give you an example, if you're going to fly from New York to London, usually you'd go to Heathrow Airport. There is Luton is a nearby airport, so is Stansted. So maybe you go to one of those airports at a much cheaper price and then take a bus into central London. I mean, you could save a lot of money. And
Hmm.
that information you can get from Rome to Rio website. That's a very, very
Mm.
good website. Boy, I mean, how many do you want? Because I've
Well,
got literally
you do.
110.
Yeah, I know, right? We can't go through all 110 right now, but
I can
um,
give you the best tip, the single greatest tip.
what's the single greatest tip?
It is. People are going to say, what? Of course. Never, 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 never agree to purchase something unless you know exactly what it's going to cost. And people are probably saying, of course. What kind of a tip is that? I always do that. However, sometimes you're in a restaurant, and this happens a lot, and especially in Europe, and you are asking for a recommendation, and they'll say, "Oh, the seafood special, yes, and it's like this, and it comes like that, and with the sauce is this," and it sounds really good to you, and you order it, and what you get is a delicious meal, but the price is ridiculously expensive. Look for it on the menu. If you don't see it on the menu, and somebody is suggesting something to you, don't be afraid to ask, "How much is that?" Same thing with wine. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, we have a special bottle." Well, how much is this special bottle? Don't let anybody give you anything unless you know exactly what it's going to cost. Taxis are great for this. You get into a taxi, I mean, if you don't know exactly how much this ride is going to cost you up front, by the time you get there, they can charge you whatever they want, and there's nothing that you can say about it. So yeah, that's my single best tip. And also for women in particular, we have been raised to be polite
Hmm.
and to not make a fuss and to all these things that we know. And sometimes you have to say, well, how much is it? And don't be afraid that people are going to be concerned with, oh, if you have to ask, you can't afford it, or
Right.
like, oh boy, I already asked him once and he didn't answer. Like, no, you can be a little bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah, I think that is super good advice because I mean, I've heard horror stories about taxi rides and
Yeah, that's a
like,
big one, taxi drives.
yeah, yeah. So if I'm planning a trip and I want to find the best airfare, do I book out like 2 weeks in advance? Do I get on some kind of wait list? Are there specific sites that you recommend
Yeah,
for
I've got some great sites. One is Momondo, Momondo,
MOMONDO?
right? That's one. Google Flights is another one,
Okay.
and Sky Scanner.
Wow. I haven't heard of
So
any.
why these are good is because, contrary to sites like Kayak, or I don't know about Kayak, but definitely Expedia, they don't have budget airlines. They'll just have like the top airlines and maybe a couple of rungs below that. So these websites that I mentioned, they have all of the budget airlines. So if you're going to be in Europe, you want to know what Ryanair, which is an Irish company, budget airlines, is selling, and the other one is EasyJet. That's a UK company. You want to know what their fares are throughout Europe. Sometimes they'll have like incredibly cheap fares for going to second tier airports mostly. So they're going from Stansted Airport in London to, I don't know, some airport nearby in Barcelona. And the price is cheaper.
Because they're not the major airport.
Because they're not the major airports. And because they have the budget airlines in their repertoire, whereas many American companies do not do that.
And do you feel secure that those budget airlines are just as safe as the major airlines?
Absolutely. They've been around forever. India is another good one for some budget airlines, which they don't show up. But once you can see them on these websites. As far as the when to buy the ticket, I mean, some people say 2 months out. Some people say as soon as possible. To tell you the truth, I am not aware of any tried and true definitive response to that. I believe it changes. And I also believe that it has all to do with revenue management, which means that wherever the demand is, that's where the price is going to go up. If they can predict out demand going up for something, then the price is going to go up as well.
Yeah. Let me ask you also about travel insurance. Every time you book a trip, they go, oh, you should sign up for travel insurance. Is that something, I mean, with the pandemic, I imagine that would have affected a lot of your travelers, right?
Yeah, I would not go anywhere. I wouldn't dream of going anywhere without travel insurance. Definitely. If you have a credit card like a Sapphire Reserve, and there are others, that's the one I use, they have automatically travel insurance, certain travel insurance, like lost luggage, delayed flights, things like that. They don't have medical insurance and evacuation. So when you're going on a trip, just go to get that. That's key. And what travel company should you use? There are some travel companies that you put in your specific criteria. You insert how old you are, you're a citizen of what country, how much do you want, how much travel insurance do you want? You plug that in, and they will come back to you with different policies and different price quotes from 50 different companies. So I'm trying to remember the name of that company.
But I think, I'm sorry, while you're thinking about that, I think that, it's not just if your trip gets canceled or you get sick, but if you get sick in country,
right,
and you need special medical care, Medicare is not going to cover you in a foreign country.
Right.
And you're not going to have coverage to be evacuated. So travel insurance, I think, is critical. I would agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And I personally, I might not have done this when I was 20, but now that I'm not 20,
right, exactly.
I would I definitely buy evacuation insurance. You might never need it, but oh boy, the day that you do, you're on a jet back to a hospital where you feel comfortable. So, and it's not expensive. And a little bit of research will save you money, and it will give you a peace of mind that has no price. So
yeah.
I think one is travelinsurance.com is one of the companies. And the other one, I believe, is Square Mouth. Square Mouth. Yeah, Square Mouth.
MOUTH. Okay.
MOUTH. And the other one is insuremytrip.com. Okay. Those three companies will do all of the legwork for you and deliver these results for you.
And you're talking about this specifically for international travel, for in country?
No, you can. No, it's for travel in general. You put in whatever criteria is important to you. There's a form that you fill out. They ask you, where are you going? Are you going to Spain, or maybe you're going to California? That's going to be a different quote. So you put in your own specific criteria for that specific trip, and they'll spit back out at you all different options, and then you can make your decision based on that.
Talek, this is the information that you've been sharing with us is just so valuable. I really appreciate it. One more question for you, though. You
Oh,
know
sure.
that Hey Boomer is really all about inspiring people to live life to the fullest, to still be involved, to still be engaged. And I'm wondering if you have one or two tips that you would like to leave with the audience about how to do that through travel.
Oh boy. Like I mentioned, if you're interested in long-term, take small group tours, number one. I mean, take a couple of them. I take a couple of them a year. You'll meet people. Join one of these groups for women over 50, different groups like that, travel groups. Um, as I mentioned, if you're interested in long-term travel, try house sitting and volunteer work, or teaching English overseas. I mean, that will certainly keep you engaged. And if you love travel, then it's the perfect match for you, so that you can continue doing this, rather than to just go off on your own. Okay, I saw this, I saw that. I mean,
Right.
you're involved. You're involved.
Yeah. House sitting sounds like that would be an interesting option. Yeah. So if you want to get Talek's book or learn more about this upcoming trip in September to northern Spain, go to her website, travelswithtalek.com. But there's two other places that you can follow her. She has a Facebook page that's called Travels with Talek. So just put that in the search bar and you will find her page. And she also has a group. Now, this one you have to get, asked to join. And I know it's hard to see, but it says over 50 women travelers, community and resource sharing. And it's a very active group, a lot of communication back and forth between Talek and the members on that page. So it's a fun place if you have any questions about travel and to meet people that you might want to travel with.
Sure.
Yeah. So thank you for all of this. And I
Thank
want to
you.
tell you about who's coming up next week. It's kind of a nice follow on. It's not just house sitting, these people have become expats. And what makes somebody decide to go live in another country after retirement? So, my guests for February 14th, Valentine's Day, are Brad and Jocelyn Majors, and they relocated to the Azores off the coast of
Wow.
Portugal. And they were very involved in many parts of the United States before they lived overseas, but Jocelyn had lived overseas before as well. So as you hear the story of how they chose the Azores and what life is like there for them now, I think you will agree they're not really retired. They've just kind of redefined what life looks like now for them. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Hey Boomer also has a Facebook group like Talek's group, and it is a place where you can build community with people in similar transition phases of life that you are in, whether you're pre-retirement, you're already retired, you're looking for what's next in your next best life chapter. So if you want to join the Hey Boomer What's Next Facebook group, just drop me an email at wendy@heyboomer.biz, and I will be glad to send you an invite. And with that, thank you all for tuning in today. I know this has been a very useful broadcast, Talek, and I really appreciate all that you've shared with us.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thanks. So live with passion, live with relevance, live with courage, and remember, you are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey